Joining me in the studio is someone who has helped and cared for many souls. He's a pastor, human empowerment counselor, a spiritual coach, an author, and his latest book, The Norm is Not Normal, Moving from Conventional to Exceptional, is designed to help you take your life from ordinary to extraordinary levels. Welcome, Dr. Rhema Ehiemere.
Thank you, sir.
Doc, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And I have to say good to see you again because I discovered that we met years ago.
Yep.
In London.
2011, yeah.
Now, you were living in the UK.
Yep.
Studying.
Yep.
And God has transitioned you to
the US.
To the US. You were about to start, at this point, a church.
Yep.
In Houston.
Houston, south of Houston, Sugarland to be precise.
Now, before we got to the stage of doing a master's degree, writing books, traveling over 40 countries speaking, what was the first memory when you look back? What was your first meaningful encounter with Jesus?
Well, I've been in church all my life. I was born in Nigeria. I've been in church all my life. My parents are pastors, so
okay.
we were raised in church. I mean, my earliest memories were in church. Grew up in church.
Now, what church tradition did your parents belong to?
It was a non-denominational church. It's Living Word Ministries. It's in the eastern part of Nigeria. And we grew up in church. I started out playing the drums. Before I was 10, I played the drums. I played a little of the keys, and I switched over to the saxophone. That's where I stayed. But I think that what happened for me was before I played the saxophone, I always said one or two words of encouragement. And I noticed that people were more excited about what I said
than the plane.
Now, the plane was okay.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, man.
but I began to see that was a pattern. And, of course, when I went to college, I started pastoring with my elder brother, who's also a pastor now in Maryland. And I've always known that there's something about when I speak and people just responded, and I knew that there was a call. I remember vividly when I was playing the sax, I made mention and I said something. I said, there is a woman here looking for the fruit of the womb, but if you're looking for the fruit of the womb, just step out, just come out. And a woman came out, and I just came back from Nigeria a couple of weeks ago, and I saw the twin baby she had.
Whoa.
And she told me, hey, do you remember this? I said, I absolutely have no idea of what you're talking about. She said, well, you don't play the sax anymore, but when you used to play the sax, you made mention before you played the sax that if we need the fruit of the womb, just come out and be prayed for. And I just prayed for her, and I went back to playing the sax. So all those things kind of pointed me to ministry, and I just knew that there was something. I've always been talking. I've always been part of ministry, but I knew that there was something, and God's hand was on my life.
You could have just stayed in the human resources world as a practitioner, but you're a pastor, and this, you have a few books.
Yes.
This particular one, The Norm is Not Normal, Moving from Conventional to Exceptional. Reading through it, I thought, someone may read this and say, well, it's just like a Tony Robbins book.
Yep.
What for you is the heart of what you do? Because, you have so much scripture in there, it can't just be self-help.
The norm is not normal, really, is a conversation with myself, and I'm just letting the world eavesdrop, really. I wrote this book because I felt like I was at a point in my life where I was just going through cycles, and I felt that dissatisfaction, and God began to speak in words and concepts. And if you see the way the book is written, it was not just written like chapters. You could see that there are quotes, and I expounded and explained some of the quotes. And that's really how God began to talk to me about this. And one of the things he told me is, he said, you don't wait for people to do what I've told you to do. And oftentimes when God tells us to do something that doesn't have a point of reference is because he wants to make us a point of reference. Muyiwa, there was no point of reference when God told Mary to believe him for conception without consummation. Yes. All the things we call miracles in the Bible, Geoffrey telling the sun and the moon to stand still, going around the walls of Jericho, nobody had done that before. And God began to tell me that, hey, you have to learn how to step out and do what I've told you to do.
You suggest in the book that if you're going to be a person of significance, you have to be ready for people to to talk bad about you.
Absolutely.
Is that, I mean, what's your experience of that?
Social media has made it worse nowadays. But the truth about it is that God told me something with this, Muyiwa. He said, if you're concerned about what people are saying about you, you would eventually become a person people are never concerned about listening to. Case in point, blind Bartimaeus. He was focused on Jesus, and the people, the social media, every other person's opinion, they told him to shut up. He didn't listen to the shut up. He listened to Jesus and listened to who he wanted to see. And eventually we're having a conversation about him today because he didn't listen to what people said. And I believe that criticism is the only way your enemies can explain your success. That's why it's called backbiting, because they are at your back. Mm-hmm. And
so for you, as you've shared the truth in this book, what are some of the testimonies that you've seen and people have returned to with you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I think about this book and what has happened, a lot of people have read this book and the miracles and testimonies. I've seen people literally having nothing. I've seen financial miracles, because one of the things I talk about in The Norm is Not Normal is believing God for more. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a point of reference for what you're believing God to do in your life. That is the premise of this book. And people are stuck in just commonality and similarity and familiarity. So I've seen, and I cannot be very specific with this, but I've seen people start businesses. I got a call last week actually about a friend of mine. He's in oil and gas, and he read this book, and he is opening an oil and gas business. He already has one, but right now the miracles and what God is doing is phenomenal based on what he just read.
Now, our time is short, but I wonder, for someone who's watching, who's thinking, they look at you and think, well, it's all right for you, you're in America. I mean, you lived in the UK. You don't know the trouble I face in Rwanda or in, or in Kigali or in Accra or in Delta State. What one thing can you say to them? I mean, we barely have 60 seconds. What one thing can you say to them to jolt them out of that, to encourage them that it's not always going to be like that?
Pain and pressure doesn't mean it's time to give up. It means it's time to give birth. On your journey to destiny, there's going to be pain, there's going to be pressure. And you are not a product of your environment. You're a product of your assignment. And that's what I'm going to tell them, that regardless of where you are, you can still live your purpose. And you don't even need to be in all those places. Even here, where we are, people are allowed their past to be a deterrent to what God has called them to do. And anything you cannot change about your past is not a limitation. It's just information. So I'm going to tell whoever the person is, that if God has given you a vision, you can do it. God would never give you a vision that is sensible, but a vision that is possible. Regardless of the environment, if you can go for it, God will go with you always.
Dr. Rhema, thank you so much for joining us on TPI.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure being here.